Ooh, I love college football. We are like in crunch time
Yo,
right now
this
for
is
college
your time.
football. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
Nate. Oh my
your time.
goodness. Watch 10, 15-minute, whatever showing of the college football playoff. And this is what it had to say. We got to talk about the picture of college football. We're getting in the crunch time, Nate. You have potentially, Tennessee's the first team out, but you have potentially 5 SEC teams making the playoffs, Nate. 4 of them making the playoffs right now, and I think maybe 4 Big Ten teams as well. So you got pretty much your big conferences or whatever. But what's interesting is BYU was number 6. They just lost to Kansas, which was a huge upset. BYU, they just don't play defense. You have BYU falling from 6 to 14. Guess who moves up past 14, Nate?
Or Georgia.
Boise State.
Boise
State. The group of five shoe-in. Now, what we predicted to be 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds for the Power 4 conferences, we now have Big Ten Conference champion, SEC Conference champion, ACC Conference champion, and Group of 5 champion, which is Boise State. Now Boise State gets a bye.
Big 12.
BYU.
Okay.
BYU is now ranked below Boise State, which means they will have to play the first round of the college football playoffs. They don't get a bye. Because what we thought was going to happen was, okay, well, the Group of 5 team is just going to be the last ranked team, so they're just going to be seed number 12, have to play whoever. BYU's now seed number 12. So they don't get a bye, even though they won their conference, in a power conference, might I add. But we're forgetting some teams that could compete for that Big 12 spot. Colorado, Nate. What has Coach Prime been doing in Colorado?
They've been winning and playing good football. They have to play BYU, wouldn't they?
They would in the championship.
Okay.
Now, Colorado has 2 losses. They lost to Nebraska. They've lost to
Kansas State.
Whoa.
Kansas State in the Big 12 too, right? So we need to look.
Kansas State just lost. So they're pretty much out. Kansas State's pretty much out. It's really Colorado and BYU. But what does not make sense to me is this. Look at number 13 as it scrolls past the screen, Nate. Who's that team right there?
Hold on. He's got to come back.
Oh, did not come back? It's your conference number 1 in the ACC right now, SMU.
Oh, wow.
But this is where the rankings get a little bit kind of hypocritical. They're big on head-to-head matchups, which is why you see Ole Miss directly ahead of Georgia, which is why you see Alabama ahead of Georgia.
But Alabama lost to Tennessee, but how many losses does Tennessee have? 3 on the year?
2. They just lost to Georgia. So they had Arkansas and Georgia.
Okay.
But what doesn't make sense, if you look at 13 and 14, that's SMU and BYU. Remember why I just told you BYU is ranked 6?
Yeah.
SMU has 1 loss on the season. We talk about head-to-head matchups and how much they matter in the college football playoff setting. But maybe the playoff committee messed up. BYU is the only team that has beaten SMU this entire year. SMU has not lost a conference game since joining the ACC. But now you're going to rank SMU above BYU. Because why? You're now having exceptions to what you thought was an objective rule. Head-to-head matchups. That's what we said was the number 1 contributor to playoff spots. head-to-head matchups, strength of schedule, and now we're looking at it and we're saying, why is SMU ranked above BYU? They were ranked 6. They fell down 8 spots. A team that was undefeated lost once. Why?
You know, that's something I couldn't answer. The committee, and I was talking to Robbie about this. And look who's commented, Robbie. The committee it seems like when we came up with this whole playoff system, or when they came up with the playoff system for NCAA, that the first year somebody was going to get left out. Last year somebody was left out. Now they expanded into a 12-team playoff and whatnot, but still there's not a definite answer or resolution to the problem in collegiate sports when it comes down to it, because you're going to also have people that's going to complain about strength of schedules, conferences, how many losses, how was this a bad loss or a good loss? It's so many other factors that got to get factored in and whatnot. That somebody, even though it's 12 slots, somebody's going to get left out. And everybody's not going to be happy.
No, like I told you, Tennessee's the first team out. Even though Tennessee is who I think is, after they played Georgia, I can't tell. Everybody, it's like a never-ending, just like of just
right.
eating each other. I mean, we've never seen anything like it. Georgia, but they beat Texas, right? They beat Tennessee. Tennessee beats Bama. Bama beats Georgia. Ole Miss beats Georgia. It's just this never-ending cycle of just eating each other. And now we can't really decide how to rank them. Other than whoever wins last is whoever's going to be ranked above the other ones.
Yep.
And Alabama just won, and Georgia just won the last 2 big matchups.
Yep.
And now they're ranked up ahead of people they might have lost to.
Yep. There's no resolution to this. We all thought it was going to be something when you create the playoff, but it's not, because there's always going to be something that comes up.
Yeah, I agree, Rob. Texas number 3. Yeah, I said they were pretenders last week. That's what I said. But when you don't really have, and it's all part of SEC bias. I feel like Texas has a big bias because they're Texas too. When you're in the SEC and you really don't play anybody, and your record is right there, they're gonna rank you high. You now have that SEC credibility to your name. And it's the same with Penn State. Penn State at number 4. Say the same for Penn State. They have, or Indiana maybe. Indiana. We're really, really going to see this weekend what Indiana is made of. Because guess who they have to play? Ohio State.
Are they playing in the shoe or Indiana?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I think they might be playing at Ohio State. Yeah, they're playing at Ohio State. Okay, I thought so.
Is that where College game day is going to be?
There's another big matchup.
It should be, if that's the case.
It probably will be, but I think there's another big matchup. This week of college football is good because right before rivalry week, you're really getting into competition. Like this is you schedule pretty, except really the exception of Clemson, who we're going to talk about in just a second. Michelle, if you're watching. They have to play the Citadel before they go into South Carolina, which I think Clemson, South Carolina is going to be a banger this year. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so good. I've loved watching those two teams.
It's going to be so much weight.
Ooh, it better not be during the Egg Bowl is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It better not be during the Egg Bowl because, it won't be because Egg Bowl's on Friday. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. But Ole Miss has Florida. Is that the only good matchup, Rob? While Rob figures that out, I want to talk about Clemson, Nate, because they just played, and I guessed it perfectly, and I freaking forgot to pull the video up on here. But last week on Thursday, we do a segment called Coach's Corner and predict. I mean, you've been on it. We predict our college football matchups, and Clemson and Pitt was the first one, and I said this. Pitt and Clemson are always a close game. The score is going to be 24-20, and I'm going to give it to Clemson. Because it's always a close game. Clemson's lost to Pitt and ended up winning the national championship, whatever. The score was 24-20, Nate. I pretty much predicted it spot on. I ended up making a reel about it, posted on Instagram, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. It was 17-17 at the end of the fourth quarter. There was about less than 4 minutes left, 3 minutes, 50-something seconds. And this play happened. And you being a ref, I need you to tell me about this play. Because let me paint the scene. It's 17-17. You're driving down the field. This could potentially win the ball game. Right? And there is a call right here. Boom. I think it's AJ Terrell's little brother. I can't remember if that is or not. But he's on the team. I think maybe AJ Terrell's little brother's 20. Regardless, everybody's thinking a flag should be called. Well, he comes in and his forearm hits the Pitt's quarterback's face mask. And everybody's like, oh, it should be a call. Now, they review this. And it's probably going to show them review. No, it won't. They review this, Nate. And they say that the QB, they're going to call unnecessary roughness because the QB was a defenseless player. And when I looked at this, I have never been more mad at a Clemson game than probably this call right here. Because when you can sit here and tell me, you can look me in the eye as a football fan, who I know what I'm talking about, I've watched a lot of football, and you can sit here and tell me a quarterback stepping up in the pocket about to throw the ball, you see him pat the ball, about to throw it, if you can call that defenseless and lie to my face and tell me that that was a defenseless call and then call a penalty after the review, you got to be out your mind. I have never been so mad, Nate, at a Clemson game. What is the right? Did they make the right call? What is this called, Nate?
It's not defenseless, but you cannot hit a quarterback in the head and neck area. You can't. You cannot hit a quarterback in the head and neck area. They're going to be protected in that aspect. And you don't really recognize the play because in that moment it's a bang bang play. But yeah, it's not a defenseless player. It's an unsportsmanlike conduct player, or a personal foul. It's a personal foul. You guess you got to say roughing the passer because you cannot hit them in the head and neck area. But the thing that's kind of crazy is that I didn't know that they could review a play. I thought you could only review plays like if it was targeting called.
That's what they were trying to see if it was targeting.
Again, because unless they made the targeting call, that's the only way you go back to, again, reviewing anything. So did they make a targeting call?
There was no call on the field at all, Nate. And that's what I was mad too. They called a penalty after there was no call on the field. And then the commentator said, well, maybe they're looking for if it's targeting review. There was no head-to-head contact.
If it's a targeting call, they make the targeting call, but then you got to go back and review it.
You got to go back and review it. And I mean, you can review a play if it's targeting and there's no call on the field. I get that. But whenever there's no head-to-head contact, and the commentators were saying he might have launched on that play, which I don't know about that. But when you don't meet the criteria for targeting and you review the play, and obviously the home team's upset, you're going to call something. You review it to call a penalty, targeting. When it's not targeting, we're going to call another penalty. Because that's what the home team wants.
That's what I'm confused, because I didn't know you can call a penalty after a review.
I don't think you can, Nate. I've never heard that unless it's a rule that they just added this year.
I would have to really look into my rule book. I would have to look into my rule book, but I didn't know you could do that. Because if that's the case, you should be able to review all plays and look for certain calls, certain, penalties, and make the call.
You should be able to. If we're going to go back and say, hey, this was unnecessary roughness when we didn't call it on the play. I mean, you saw the fans upset. They were, I can't play the audio, but they were upset because there was no call on the field. After a timeout was called, right? Pitt called a timeout. They reviewed it and then called the penalty. They came back and said, hey, this is what it is, unnecessary roughness. We're going to call it. And that almost decided that game, Nate, until this happened. My dad said it was a legit replay.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Nate, what do they say when you kind of disagree with a call on the field and end up, say you score the basketball? What do they say after that?
Ball don't lie. Ball
There
don't
you
lie.
go. Bottom line, Nate. Next drive. Next drive. That's what happens. I don't even think it was. I think they might have had one play before that. Boom. Cade Klubnik scores it in for
But
6.
ball don't lie. Ball does not lie.
And guess what? Clemson won that game. And I'm glad they did because of that dang penalty. Um, if we're going to replay things for head penalties, that's fine. I just wish I knew it. They just changed the rules so much for safety reasons. I get that. But as Nate becomes a ref of the game, I will learn it with him and be at his first collegiate, high school, and NFL game.
But that's kind of that play right there can dictate a game, and you don't want, as a ref, you don't want that to happen. Like, you don't want one particular play to dictate a game when, in most cases, as a competitor, you say that one in particular play is not going to be the dictator of this game when, you've had plays before. So, that I'm glad it worked out, but I do need to get in that rule book for that right there, for that reason right there.